You beat me to it.
Oh, did I?
I was actually going to do it. I made myself a note. Well, I'm going to move all my goodies in here closer since
It's just you.
it's just me alone in this big room.
It's a big office you got today.
Boy, that's a big office. I don't need an office this big. I would have it so full of stuff.
Good morning, everyone. Thank y'all for being here, and we'll start in just a few minutes. If you want to put in the chat where you're joining us from, what city or organization, that would be great. We'd love to know where everybody's from. Good old West Texas, North Texas, great.
Midland and Sherman. Richardson. Andrews, Texas. Cool. Minnesota.
Awesome. Here we are. Florida, great. Minnesota.
Great to see everybody. We'll be getting started in just about a minute. If you haven't already put in the chat where you are watching us from today, we would appreciate that. Just you can put city or city and state or even the organization that you're with. We always like seeing that, and we'll get started in about 1 minute. Hurst, Laredo, Florida. Oh, the viewing from Florida. Excellent. Folks from all over.
Probably very Florida.
Well, I've got it is right at 11:30. Jamie, did you want to start with just some announcements and then we'll get going?
I'd love to. Welcome, everyone. So glad y'all are here. We are offering free 1 hour of free CE credits for this program for nursing, social work, licensed professional counselors, and if you need a certificate of attendance or completion, we can give that to you as well. To obtain the certificates, you will receive an evaluation this afternoon after the conclusion of the program, along with some other resources we talk about today. But if you complete the evaluation, you'll receive a link in the email that we send out. Complete that evaluation. And if you'll allow us about 3 weeks to process all the certificates, then you'll receive that in the email address that you provide for us. We're thrilled to be able to provide that for you all. But we do ask, even if you don't need a certificate or anything, we do ask for your feedback. So please fill out that evaluation. It only takes a couple of minutes so we can better refine our programs and help serve the needs. We also have a lot of upcoming programs that we want to invite you to. We have our weekly and monthly support groups that we do. Holly facilitates weekly support groups every Wednesday afternoon at 1 online, every Friday morning at 11 in person. So if you're here in Fort Worth, we would love for you to come and join us in person. And then a second Saturday support group, which really focuses on more on grief, and a second Tuesday evening support group. So for those of you that need an evening group, we have those available online as well. Next week, we do have a program we're doing in partnership with the North Texas Area Agency on Aging about traumatic brain injury, chronic traumatic encephalitis, seizures, normal pressure hydrocephalus. So those disorders and how they affect the brain. So we'll kind of dive deep into each one of those, how they affect the brain. And then on, September 27th, we will be doing a program about depression and dementia. So really, what are the diagnosis of those? What are the symptoms of it and the treatments for both? And diving deep into those and how they affect the brain, diving deep into those. And then we do have our Dealing with Dementia program. This month, we're excited to offer Dealing with Dementia. It's a 4-hour workshop. It actually came out of the Rosalind Carter Caregiver Institute. It comes with a very comprehensive, large Dealing with Dementia guide. Our caregivers have gone through it, have said it's my caregiving Bible. So this is a free program, 4-hour workshop, but we're offering it in English on September 26th. And then we're also offering it in Spanish on September 15th. So if you're interested in learning more, I'm going to send out information about all the programs in the follow-up email this afternoon. But about registration or just need more information on those, please let us know. We'd be happy to get y'all registered for those. I believe that's it. It's a lot of announcements. So I'm going to turn it over to Holly.
All right. Thanks, Jamie. And again, any of those that you're interested in, or if you have associates, clients, resident family members, if you're a professional joining us today, our groups are open groups. All of our support groups are educational support groups. So I come with a topic, but it's always also open to anything we need to talk about. So it is open to people whose loved ones are still at home, placed in another center, placed here at the West Center, or even folks whose loved ones have passed. I've got people in the support group whose loved ones have been gone for 2, 3, 4 years, but they keep coming back because they have so much to give to those support groups. So we do encourage you to share that, and you'll get information about it. We're glad you're here today. I'm going to share my screen. Jamie, if you'll just let me know that everything comes up and starts working correctly.
Looks good. Sorry. And I will drop the slides into the chat as well, so y'all can download them.
Okay, perfect. We were having a little technical difficulty earlier. Why not? We're just, 2.5 years into this. Always got to have a little bit of technical difficulties. Jamie, did you want to speak to this slide, or you want me to?
Go ahead.
Okay, this is just a little bit of information about the West Center. Here we are in Fort Worth, and we're at the corner of Summit and Lancaster. We've been here for 29 years. We're going on our 30th year. We do provide residential care. We're a licensed nursing center, and we also have respite care for 3 to 30 days for both VA and private pay. Our day program is open here at our main site, but we'll very soon be moving over to the southwest side of town. Hopefully, fingers crossed, that will be in October. And then after the new year, we are going to be able to offer some short-term rehab for those with dementia. There'll be more information about that coming soon. So be looking for, follow us as we grow. It's exciting time to be at the West Center. All right, we're doing a series in our Lunch and Learns, and we're going to be doing activities for those in the early stages, and then we'll do mid stages and we'll do late stages over the next couple of months. But today we're going to focus on activities and engagements that we can do with those that are in the earlier mild stage. And what we want to focus on when somebody's in the early stages, whether it is communication, their care, or an engagement that we're doing with them, is normalization. In fact, we like to even use that word normalization to describe this early part of the disease. Normalization means we're going to make things as normal as possible. We're going to keep independence as long as possible, make sure that the person has dignity, and be able to establish a routine. Routine is very important early in the disease. There's our objectives for those of you who are going to need a CEU. And again, you'll get more information about how to get your CEU for social workers, LPCs, and nursing. We offer a free CEU. So let's think about what's going on in the brain. We know that that brain is beginning to atrophy. The brain is beginning to shrink. And it's happening depending on what type of dementia they have. Those brain cells are dying. I mean, that's with all of the dementias. The brain cells are dying. The brain is failing. So it is going to go from approximately 3 pounds. All of us, we should have about a 3-pound brain. That's a normal brain. If they go all the way to the end of the disease, that brain is going to end up at about 1 pound. So that helps us understand why their abilities are lost, but everyone's experience is different. We could have 10 people in here, their loved ones all have, let's just say Alzheimer's, and we would have 10 completely different stories. It's a very individualized disease. So as we talk about engagements and things to try with your loved one, please don't take any of them and say, that would never work with my, you never know. It just might. Now, it might not work today, but it might work next week. It might not work the next week, but it might work in 2 months. So we're going to give you a lot of great ideas. And again, Jamie has put the slides in the chat, and then you'll get a copy of them later today also. Throughout the course of this first stage of the disease, they're going to function at the developmental age of about 8 to adolescent years. And that is something called the theory of retrogenesis. Whenever we look at dementia and the fact that they are kind of going back, as they start moving into that middle stage or the moderate stage of dementia, they're going to be more in that 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old range. But in the earlier stages, it's more of 8 to adolescence. Again, we want to make sure that they are remaining independent and that they can do for themselves as much as possible. We want to come alongside. We're going to start giving cues, hints, reminders, and we're going to talk about how to do that. But physical activity actually has been proven. There's research to show that physical activity can improve cognitive thinking, physical fitness, and even a person's mood. Now, that's all of us. That's not just somebody with dementia. That's all of us. So being able to take a walk, and now that the temperature's changed here in Texas, hopefully we can start doing a little bit more of that. Dancing. People who have never danced before will dance. And I have to add, too many times did I have people, when I was the director of the day program, say something like, my dad will never dance. He's been a Baptist his whole life. We don't dance. And then I'm sending them a picture of their dad dancing, because that side of the brain over on the right where that rhythm stays, right rhythm remains, dancing and song, singing, anything that's rhythmic. Gardening, being outside, taking the dog on a walk, doing chair yoga. But we're going to give you many, many ideas of things to do. What we want to do is we want to focus on what they have left. We're going to focus on what remains. We're not going to focus on what they have lost. That's also going to be good for us as caregivers, good for us as professional healthcare workers, to not focus on what is lost, but to focus on what remains. So some of the things that we do need to think about whenever we're thinking of ideas of how to engage somebody living with dementia in the earlier stages, everybody has that need to contribute, to have that sense of well-being. We also have that need that we're important and that we matter. We need to focus on their current skills. What are they still able to do, or what are they able to do now that maybe they never even tried before? Some of the ideas that are just on this slide, having somebody help with laundry, folding laundry. If that's something they've always done, allow them to still help with laundry. Now, this is whether they're placed or whether they're still at home, but I feel like I'm contributing. Taking care of pets. And I put the picture here of the gentleman with his shredder box. And I've just been thinking back as I was updating this program of things that I have personally used and I've seen our team use Many times I've had people who work in a business setting that can still sit and put paper through a shredder. And then they're helping us. I was really needing all of those paper shred. Now you may go through several shredders because they burn them up because they're shredding so much stuff every day, but they have a purpose. I need your help with this. If you could help me shred these papers. They may, especially earlier in the disease, still be oriented to some kind of time and to person, and they may recognize familiar people and objects. Again, throughout the course of the early stage of the disease, they may still be able to travel. You may be able to do day trips, or you may be able to take a weekend trip. Simple games, and there are so many different types of games now that they have made large, and I've got a whole table full of things that I'm going to show you in just a little bit, like large playing cards, large dominoes, large Jenga sets, large Connect Four, because they are going to start to, their fine motor skills are going to start to diminish. But while they still have them, while they are still able to do them, things where they are repetitive, and we'll talk more about that. But think about things that they've always enjoyed. I had a resident's family one time who was talking about the wife was just very focused on everything that the gentleman had lost. And I said, tell me about him as a younger man. And she talked about him playing the harmonica when he was in the service. Now that was many, many, many years ago. And we suggested, get a harmonica. Bring a harmonica up here. And he picked that up. I've got some of the best videos of that gentleman playing the harmonica, but the family just assumed he couldn't do it anymore. Well, that's music, that's rhythm, that's the kind of stuff that's over here on the right that remains so long. So don't ever get to thinking, oh, they haven't done that in years. They may be back to a point where they're very interested in that now because it's something that they did a long time ago. Now, some of the things that we can expect. So these are some things that we need to look for, and we can expect these things earlier in the disease. That trouble finding words, where they may start to lose because the hippocampus is damaged and continuing to fail, where they are losing their nouns. So we may start using or hearing a lot of the thing, and the thing, and the thing, and the stuff, and the thing. And they'll replace the noun with thing and stuff. And then we've got to start trying to figure out what they're talking about. They may get very irritated with themselves or with you if we're trying to do some type of an engagement with them and they're not getting it. They may get very easily irritated. That's where we're going to change the rules with some of these games, or we're going to change the rules with how we do some things. We're going to meet them where they are in the disease. They cannot come to our world. We are going to their world. And y'all have heard us say this over and over. A person with dementia is never giving us a hard time. They're having a hard time. They may have a short attention span. So we may have to do some of these activities over and over and over again for 5 or 10 minutes. Their hygiene may decline, and they don't even realize it because their perception is changing. And you may say to them all day long, you haven't bathed in 5 days. That doesn't mean anything. Or maybe I smell that there is a body odor, but I'm not, my perception, there's not anything wrong with that. You may also see them skipping steps. So I have people in support group will talk about things like, we've always played bridge and now they can't play bridge, or we've always played whatever it is, and they're skipping steps. That's just part of the disease. So we accommodate it. We're going to change that game up a little bit. They may misplace things, and they are going to have good and bad days, just like you and I have good and bad days. That doesn't go away just because somebody has dementia. Some other losses to expect, and I chose this picture because it is a loop. A person with dementia many times will loop in their thoughts, meaning that they will come back to that same thought over and over again. They may have a 3 to 5 minute loop. They may have a 10-second loop. And one of the ways that we can keep them from looping as much is having plenty of things to keep them busy, to keep them occupied, and so that they feel like they have a purpose and a meaning and something to do. Then they don't have to ask the same question over and over. The reason that they are doing this is because that immediate recall is gone. And in most cases, with the exception of a Lewy body or maybe a frontotemporal, with vascular, with Alzheimer's especially, many people lose that immediate recall first. They can't recall what happened just a very short time ago. They also may not be able to interpret the words that we're saying, so we have to find another way to communicate with them. Not going to be able to express pain in the same way, but they will always be able to express pain. But they may only be able to express pain with a furrowed brow or a look on their face or the way they're holding their body. We talked a little bit earlier about fine motor skills, and those fine motor skills are going to start to diminish. But we're going to want to, especially early in the disease, do as much as we can for as long as we can while they have those fine motor skills. Initiation is another thing that you may see completely go away, where you have things in front of them to do, but they don't start. You have to get them to start, and then they will mirror what you're doing. Or you set them up at a table with some of these things we're going to talk about, and you have a friend come over to do it with them, somebody from Bible study, one of the grandkids. It's something they can do together. But as far as them sitting there doing it on their own, they may not. Or maybe once you get them started, they'll just keep going with it. They may not want to stop, actually. The fact that they are having a hard time making their needs known, and that's where we get into challenging behaviors, or as we've been calling them lately, challenging expressions, where they're having a very hard time making their own needs known. And so they do it with a challenging behavior. They may be saying, help me, I'm in pain, but it comes out with a fist and a curse word. And speaking of curse words, those preserved abilities, the things that are intact with most people that are in the early stages of the disease. So these are some things that you probably can expect to see. Long ago memories will likely be intact, and that's why we're going to tap into some of those with some of these activities, especially being able to do reminiscence. Confabulation, one of my favorite words. That's just a big word for telling stories or telling lies. They may actually make up stories to be able to be part of the conversation. I've had too many families come to me before, especially early in the disease, when they don't know what they don't know yet. Because all of us are that way. We don't know what we don't know. But they would say things like, what my dad's telling you isn't true. He lies. He's just started lying all the time. Well, a person with dementia doesn't have the capacity to lie, but they can confabulate. They can make up stories. So if I have someone in my office that has dementia and they're telling me all these stories about when they were in the service and they were never in the service, and I know that, I'm going to say, tell me more about your time in the service. Because now I'm having a conversation. It doesn't matter if it's a story. Those emotional memories are going to be intact, and these are going to be positive and negative. Many of you have done a lot of our programs. I noticed a lot of familiar names, and we've talked before about that the amygdala in the brain stays intact, and the amygdala is what holds our emotions, our feelings. And so if there was some trauma somewhere in their life, and we're kind of going back, that trauma may resurface. And we've got to be aware of that. But also very good emotional memories are there as well. What made me feel good? What made me feel bad? Gross motor skills, still being able to use arms and legs. Now we know that they're going to be able to understand facial expressions, tone, and gestures throughout the course of the disease. This will be throughout the course of the disease until the end of their life, because that also is controlled with the amygdala. Gestures, same way, where we're going to start communicating more with gestures. And then the other thing that stays intact, and again, we've talked about this if you did our program recently on communication, is those forbidden words, racial slurs, swear words, curse words, and sex talk. Those store on the right side of the brain instead of the left, because our left side is our day-to-day language, and that's what goes away. The right side is more of that rhythmic language. And so prayer, alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, numbers, poems, nursery rhymes, those stay. But those forbidden words store over there on the right because they aren't words that we originally used every day. Hopefully we don't use them every day. Some other preserved abilities. They're going to thrive with structure and with routine. It's going to be important to have a lot of structure and routine, especially early in the disease. They typically can follow a 2 to 3 step direction or a 2 to 3 step command, where you can actually say 2 things at the same time. And you'll know when it's time to bring it down and just say 1. Typically early in the disease, they can still read and still follow the instructions that they read. Now, this is important to know because as the disease progresses, they're going to be able to read the words but not comprehend what they're reading. So the ability to read stays longer than the ability to comprehend. So they'll be able to, so you may go, well, they can read, but they don't know what they just read. But earlier in the disease, they usually can still read. So we can label cabinets, forks, spoons, kitchen towels, socks, that type of thing, so that they can still put things away. They'll still be able to recognize errors that they make or errors that you make. Many people can. And then social skills will stay for a good while, where they still have banter, where they can still chit chat. And that's where folks who aren't around very often may say things like, well, they appear to be fine to me. I talked to them for 5 minutes on the phone and they were just fine. We talked about the weather. We talked about the Cowboys and they were great because you were giving them the answers. Boy, what do you think of all this rain? Yep, we've had a lot of rain. Did you see that Cowboys game? I saw that and that stays for a very long time, the ability to be social. So some of the things that we do want to try is to keep them socially active. And that's why we are such big proponents about day programs, about having a day program and somewhere that they can go and be with other people, but be in a safe environment. We do want to keep them involved with their friends, involved with church, involved with groups that they were in. But what does that mean for us as the caregiver? We're probably getting ready to have to educate all of those people. And we need to. And we give you permission to send them copies of this program and send them copies of our other program, so that they understand how to communicate and how important it is that they stay in the life of the person with dementia, but also in the life of the caregiver. Now, reminiscence therapy, I've talked about that and we'll bring it up a couple of more times. This is a real thing, reminiscence therapy. It uses all of the senses because the senses are in fact, the late stage of the disease, when we do it, we're going to call that the sensory stage. So we're going to use sight, touch, taste, smell, and sound to help them recall events. But we're not going to use that word remember. We're not going to say remember when, but we may say something like, I was thinking about the time that white wall tire, and I'm going to show you some more prompts here in just a little bit. And as a part of therapy, reminiscence therapy, care partners can use objects and various activities to help individuals recall memories. And again, I'm going to show you some examples in a little bit, but I also want to tell you about this app. There is an app called My House of Memories. It's a free app. It has over 100 pages of images, and it starts in the 1950s. So it has very common objects from the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. So it may be just a picture of a black metal lunchbox, where we can pull that up, preferably not on a phone, on an iPad or a computer, and go, look at that. That looks like the lunch pail that you carried to work all of those years while you were working. And it may be something that it just gets a conversation going. There's one with a red wagon. There's a BB gun. There's a teddy bear. There's a Shirley Temple doll. You also, they've got a place in that, I've got it downloaded on my phone, My House of Memories apps. You can load your own pictures. So if you have some of their items, or if you have pictures of their things, you can take a picture of it and make it part of that app. So I encourage you to go to My House of Memories app. Other things we want to do is sensory stimulation. And we've talked about folding clothes, but putting coins in coin holders, rolling coins, that's one of those things that people early in the disease usually can still do. It's something that most of us have the big old thing of change laying around, and it is something they may not do it perfectly, but they are helping, and they can sort the money. I had a gentleman, and we want to keep them with their items as much as we can. So if they were somebody who had, I'm thinking of the gentleman who had an entire garage with nuts and bolts and nails and screws and all of the different things in the garage. And his wife got little, they were the size of a baby food jar, but they weren't glass, they were plastic. And he would sit and sort the nuts and the bolts and the screws and all of he would do it day after day after day, because she was messing them up every night. She'd take them out, she'd pour them out, and he'd do it again the next day. But he had a purpose, he had a reason, and it was his stuff. He was putting his hands on his stuff. I've also had people do that with sewing kits, things that were theirs, their craft items, and they're sorting and they're rummaging, they're staying busy with their own items. Other things we can do, environmental changes, especially if you might see somebody's maybe starting to kind of ramp up or starting to get upset about something, we might have to go for a ride. If someone's talking about going home and they are home, we're not going to convince them that they're home. But what if we left and we went to the Sonic and we got one of these fun cherry limeades and then we go home? Sometimes that works, and you're coming right back to the same place. They can't be reasonable and rational. That's held up here in the front part of the brain, and that part of the brain is going away. Walking around a museum, and now we don't even have to leave home to go through a museum, because just about everybody during the pandemic put tours online that we can do. But if we can still get out of the house, it's also good for us as caregivers to be able to get out of the house. Other things that are really good to do, and it's good for us and it's good for them, is to do things for other people. We're going to go down to Joann's Fabrics and get in the clearance bin and get some of the tie blankets. And then we're going to make them and take them up here to Cook's Children's and donate them for the babies. Or we're going to go get some extra food and we're going to take it down to the animal shelter and take it in. Or we're going to go to the clothes closet at the church, and we can still help sort clothes in a clothes closet because it's sorting. Gives us something to do as well, if it's something we want to do with our loved one. We're going to want to, before we get started, set everything out that we need so that we're not going back and forth, because we're probably going to lose their attention. So we're going to want to have everything out. We're going to limit new learning. So sometimes we'll get excited about a game on a computer or something on an iPad and expect them to be able to have recall, but there's not going to be new learning. You might teach them some new learning in the moment and it's gone. You go to lunch and come back and it's gone. I did that myself with an iPad. I was teaching a group of people, and I've shared the story. Swipe, swipe, swipe. Well, swipe to most people, that's a new term to use. This as swipe. Swipe means to take. And so I was telling them to swipe on the iPad and they were taking each other's devices. That was my fault. I also had people getting really aggravated, and one of our iPads took a nice flying leap across the room because it was new learning. It was too hard. Figured out to do the same game on the iPad, project it up to the big screen, and me control the iPad and them tell me what to do with something like a Wheel of Fortune or a Jeopardy. Don't ask those open-ended questions. What do you want to do today? What did you have for lunch today? That's open-ended. I don't know. You stupid, and you might get a fist or a spit or a kick or a punch or a curse word. We made it too hard. We don't want to interrupt and we want to go with the flow. Now, there's a lot of ideas on this page. And again, you're getting copies of all this, so don't be trying to write everything down. But some of these, you may look at it and go, oh, there's no way, or we're past that, or they've never been interested in. But again, let's try it. Let's try it. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to stop sharing my screen in just a minute and show you some ideas that I have here in front of me. Some of the ones that are on here that I haven't talked about yet is having a fabric box with all different types of textures, where you actually make, where it has velvet and it has silk and it has cotton, and it's these different, I'm actually going to show you a picture of there's a place where you can actually buy these online. If you don't have time to make them yourself, you can buy these boxes already made. You can buy these swatches. Adult coloring books. Now, lots of times we see an adult coloring book that looks like this, and it has little tiny, I color children coloring books myself because I think they're easier, but coloring, arts and crafts. Sorting is there again. One of the things with sorting, I used to take, because I was a school teacher for 20 years, so I had lots of stuff left over, and I used to put it in a laundry basket and bring it and just dump it out on the table, was for some of the residents who had been teachers, and they would sort and put things together. Being able to string beads or make jewelry, doing a Bible study, cooking, and we'll talk about how we can do some of these at each of the stages of the disease. Because you may say, I can't turn them loose in the kitchen. There's no way that they could cook, but are there some things that they could do to help so they feel like they're needed and they have purpose? If they've always been somebody who liked word searches or crosswords, maybe they're not doing them right anymore. Who cares? It's interesting to pick up somebody's crossword book and look at it, because sometimes they're just filling in letters, but they're working the puzzles. They don't have to be doing them right. Creating collages or books. You can go to Half Price Books, and at Half Price Books, most of them, it's in the back of the store. They have magazines, and all of their magazines are $1. So I would go to Half Price Books and get stacks of magazines, and then come cut them out, and we would create new books, or we would make collages. I had a gentleman in the day program that would make his own books. He'd cut out pictures from magazines and other books, and then he'd make his own books, and he'd tell stories. He was confabulating, but he would tell these stories, and he did it for the longest time. And we had him an area where he could just sit and make books. And we're going to talk about sensory objects as well, like water mats, and I'm going to show you some pictures of those. Let's talk just a minute about a memory box, or a rummage box, is what some people call them. But it helps people stay connected to their past. This is a way to use that reminiscence therapy. Getting items from their work. So if there were someone who worked in an office, we may have lots of office supplies. Copies of photos. Notice I said copies. Don't put original photos in there, just in case they are torn, they get washed, they decide to draw on them. Non-important type keepsakes. And objects that have to do with hobbies that they may have had even in the past. Excuse me. Then you can create special boxes, like a holiday box, a sports box, baking. Let me stop sharing just a minute. I'm going to show you an example of this. If I can not get choked. Okay, here's a box. You can see the size of this box. We actually had some high school students make these boxes. This one is a holiday box, and on the cover, there's all kinds of stickers from lots of holidays. There's Valentine's, and there's Easter, and there's Christmas. And when you open the box, there's all kinds of fun things in here. There's a necklace with Christmas lights. There's a pumpkin. There's Happy New Year. There's Easter eggs. Here's a birthday. It's a rummage box. So I can get this box and oh, look what I found. Vampire teeth that glow in the dark. Now that's some fun stuff. This all came from the dollar store. So if it gets torn up, that's fine. Now, if you're in Fort Worth, we actually have some of these boxes available at many of the local libraries where you can check them out. We've put them together here at the West Center, and you can go and check out some boxes at the local library for free. But then you can make your own, and you can make it specific to your loved one with their stuff in it. Has their own things in it. I'm going to show you some other things while I've got my camera off, things that you can do. And I went over to our day program this morning and I gathered up a lot of stuff. They made bookmarks. They made these. They just took construction paper, they took stickers, and then they laminated it and they made bookmarks. We can do things like that and then give them as gifts. The holidays are coming up. We've got a purpose. We're going to do this together. I talked about that app. You can also buy Reminiscence cards. So here's a whole stack of cards. And look at some of the fun things that are on here. Let me see, up a turntable with 45 records. Those of you that are old enough to know what that is. But if we were just, I used to use these all the time in the day program, and this is people who are early stage dementia. Would you look at that? Look at those 45. Did you ever have any 45 records? Tell me about the records you had. Oh, I love the Beatles. Let's pull some music up right now. And we turn it into an engagement. I'm using my hands. This is something tactile. And then we're going to listen to it. And what if we had our records that we could listen to? And it has pictures of things like that type of roller skate. You know, the kids today have never seen anything like that. But it's good memories and it's great things to talk about. You can make your own. You can order these online, and I'm going to give you some places where you can get them. Another great thing, giant playing cards, Dollar Tree, Dollar General. I've seen people sit and they may not even be playing a game. They're sorting. They're putting red together. They're putting black together. They're putting the numbers together. They're playing a game, and we can play it with them. A purpose and a reason, and we're not just sitting in front of the TV. It's something to do. Here's another craft that they had made in the day program. And this is just stuff that they bought. It's just a star, wooden star. And then they glued and they put the little hanger on it. It's things they're making. We talked about Reminiscence. You can also purchase or make cards like this and make it into a game. And I've got trivia on the back. After a performance in Nashville's Grand Ole Opry, this artist was told, the concert manager said he was better off going back to driving trucks. Who is that? And we turn it into Elvis. Elvis was a truck driver, and we can start having conversations about it. And you pull up people from history. There's Buddy Holly. And again, these, trying to see if they laminated these here. You can make your own, or you can buy them. We talked about the color books. Painting. This is one of the easiest paint projects. Look at these. These are just paint boards like you get at Hobby Lobby. And then you take masking tape and you put masking tape across it. And then you paint in the different squares. And when you pull it off, and you can get all sizes of these. We used to do this all the time in the day program. People loved doing this paint. And you get the kind of paint that's washable paint. Coffee table books. We also have the holidays coming up. One of the best gifts you can get somebody with dementia is a coffee table book that has to do with a subject they like. And if you can't think of anything, always go with pets or babies, pets and babies. This one's about upside down dogs. It doesn't look like a children's book because it isn't a children's book. It's dogs being silly. And we can sit and look at this together And in this time, when we're looking at this book together, we are not mother-daughter. I mean, we are not caregiver care recipient. We're mother-daughter. We're husband-wife. We're friends. Nobody's taking care of anybody. We're connecting and looking at the dogs. Some magazines are really good. National Geographic most of the time has great pictures in it of nature. So those are good as well. $1 half price books. Because this one is 2004. Who cares? It's got great pictures in it. And the last one I wanted to show you here before I get back to the slides. This is actually a book called You Be the Judge. And it is one paragraph and it gives you the facts. And then it asks a question about that. It's very interesting. It's made specifically for people with dementia. And again, I'm going to tell you where to get these. So there's some ideas. Let me get back to sharing my screen real quick. Okay. We talked a little bit about taking care of pets. They may still be able to take care of pets, and pets are so therapeutic. We talk about the 4 best ways to distract somebody with dementia: food, music, animals, and children. Food, music, animals, and children. They also make robotic pets for people who have dementia, and I'll show you one of those in just a minute. Intergenerational activities using children. And if you don't have real children, pull up YouTube videos and type in children playing, babies laughing. You can also put into YouTube baby animals playing, baby animals falling down. They're fantastic to watch. Do that while you're having some ice cream, and that's a great engagement. You'll find yourself enjoying it as well. Doing things that have to do with art. Kinetic sand is amazing. It is a type of sand, but it stays together. It is great for somebody that's just busy with their hands to be able to sit and mess with their hands. And I'm going to show you some of that in just a minute. We've talked about music, taking a walk, and collecting items for a collage. Also gardening. So maybe they can't get down and garden, but could you get a raised garden bed? They sell them everywhere. I saw them at Lowe's this weekend. I saw them at Tractor Supply this weekend. A raised garden bed where they can still put their hands over in the dirt and dig in the dirt and plant and weed and water. Having some physical activity. Maybe they can't get out and walk, but could they do one of these pedal devices like we've got there in the picture, where you can sit and just pedal, 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 pedal. We've talked about folding towels, doing something that has some repetition with it. Now think about this, especially with the holidays coming. Our loved one comes into the kitchen, we're cooking, and we say to them, go back in there and watch TV, I've got it. And we've said that several times. Now imagine what they could be hearing. I don't need you. You're not worthy. You don't know how to do it right. Just go in there and sit down. Be quiet. Don't make any trouble. If we can find a way, let them come in the kitchen. Maybe they are just where they could stir something. You don't have to use what they're stirring, but they feel like they're contributing. Having a routine, especially if they can still read, you might get a whiteboard like the one you see here. When I worked for the Alzheimer's Association, many of my families use these whiteboards to put their day. And then if their loved one would say, when are we going to church? When are we going to church? When are we going to church? We going to church. They'd say, check your whiteboard. And they made that part of the routine. Let's look at your whiteboard. Let's look at the whiteboard, check the whiteboard. And they would keep that whiteboard updated. Having that routine, having that schedule. We do want to make sure and allow them plenty of time to respond. And that will be one of the ways we can tell as the disease is progressing. It's going to take them longer and longer to hear what we said, have it compute, and then they do it. Towards the end of the disease, it can take up to 20 seconds. That's a long time. And you know what most of us do during that time? We say it again. We say it again. We say it again. We change our tone. I said, and they're still trying to figure out the first time. So give them time. If you're going to do some type of an activity, also sitting right across from them, kind of square shouldered across, so that they can mirror your, because if you just say, do you want to play cards? No. Do you want to do a craft? No. You're probably going to get a whole bunch of no's. But if you just sit down with some cards, I got these new big cards. I was going to sit here and I'm going to sort these and play with them. Before long, they may be over there, even if they're shuffling them. But you're having time for a connection. So that's what we're getting to, is making that connection. They're going to feel safe. Because most of you, if you're that primary caregiver, you figured out by now you're the good guy and the bad guy. I need you, don't get out of my sight, but you're the one that's making me take my medicine or trying to get me to take a bath. Good guy, bad guy. All right, real quick, we're going to watch this. It is about 3, maybe 4 minutes. And this is on some activities to do with a person in the early stage of dementia.
So you're taking care of somebody with dementia. You're with them all day. They're agitated, they're moving around, they want to do things. What do you do? Right? How do you keep them busy? So, let's say they're 75 years old. You don't want to do things that are childish, right? You don't want to do things that might be more challenging to them. My mother hates crafts. If I tried to give her a craft, even without dementia, she'd probably pop me one. She doesn't like them, right? So again, we got to know their routine. What is it that they like to do? What did they used to do? It isn't necessary that you have to try to get them to do something new. The other thing is modify the activity for where they are, right? So let's say they used to paint, right? They were a really good painter. Well, they might not be able to do what they did before, but there's a way to modify it. So maybe you do a paint by numbers, or you have fewer colors, or you don't have as large of a canvas. How is it that they can still create and do the things that they used to do at their level? The other thing is, if they were a really good painter, they might not want to do it anymore because they're not good at it anymore. And so they feel like they don't want to do it. So you have to know that, right? So you kind of have to figure out what's good and what doesn't work. So, look at what they used to do. If they were somebody who was involved in housework, right? You had a stay-at-home mom who worked in the house, liked to cook. Maybe they can't follow a recipe anymore, but think, what could they do? All right, are they safe with a knife? Yeah, let them chop, right? They like to bake. Well, maybe they can't measure all the ingredients, but it doesn't mean that you can't put it in a measuring cup, hand it to them and let them pour it in the bowl, turn on the mixer and then let them mix it, right? How can you get them involved at a level that they're able to do it? If they're not able to follow a recipe, don't ask them to do that. It's going to make them more frustrated and more agitated. So where are they? What can they do? And the thing to remember is, as the disease progresses, they're probably not going to be able to do as much. So maybe now they can pour the sugar into the measuring cup. Next year they might not be able to do that, but they might be able to mix, right? So you have to keep adapting that. Did they fold laundry? Maybe they can't go down and they can't use the washing machine and they can't figure that out, but if you bring a basket of laundry up, they can fold it. Does it have to be perfect? No, you can refold it. They can match socks or maybe fold towels if it's harder for them to fold shirts and pants because it's a little bit more difficult to follow. They can do towels, that's easy. One of the good things about laundry is if they do have very short-term memory, you can have them fold that, get them involved in something else, and then come back, mess up all the towels and they can fold them again, right? The object here is to keep them busy, to keep them happy, to keep them involved in something, because if they're not involved, they could get agitated, they could start to wander, they might start moving around and fall if they don't have something to do. Maybe they can set the table if they aren't able to cook anymore. You give them the plates, but you give them one thing at a time, right? Give them the plates, let them put the plates down, then give them the forks and let them put the forks down. Again, it doesn't matter if they're in the right place. If they like to exercise, take a walk with them. If they like to dance, turn on some music and let them dance. They like to play tennis and they're still able, let them go out and do that. So whatever it was they like to do, yard work, they can weed. Maybe they can water. If they can't get down and actually do yard work, they can water the flowers. Need to be supervised, need direction, step-by-step directions, you'll need to be there to help them. But they can still do that. So there's all kinds of activities that you can do, that you can adapt. You just sort of have to try them one at a time. But again, if you know their routine, you know their history, you know what it is that they like to do, you can find anything that they're going to be able to do. If they liked movies but can't go to the theater, you can get movies on TV now very easily. And maybe they can't follow it, but you can turn it on and off, right? If they get up and walk away, then they can come back down and sit down and you can turn it on again. So adapt the activity to where they are, but do something that you know they're going to be interested in.
So she was talking about adapting the activity, and one of those being movies or TV. Oops. So it may be that what?
Sorry. Yeah. And the bad part for me is that
I need somebody to mute, please. Let's see. I think I got it. Okay. They may not be able to watch a full movie, but again, go to YouTube and pull up Shirley Temple, and it will pull up a short, or it may be 3 to 5 minutes of Shirley Temple that we watch. I do in the last few minutes, I do want to, because we do have the holidays coming up, some of the ways that we can still involve our loved one during the holidays, because we do want to make sure and do that. We don't know how many holidays we have left, and we do not want to just be saying to them throughout the holiday season, just go sit down, I've got it. There's lots of things that they can do. We have an entire program that we do about dementia holiday times, to be looking for that October, November. But some of the things they can do is helping put up the tree, hanging ornaments on the tree. It doesn't matter if they're all right here in this area. We'll redo it after they go to bed. Things don't have to be perfect. Allow them to help. I watched a family over the course of 3 years with holiday cards, where the first year the daughter came to the place that I was working, and she sat right outside my office with her mom, and they both signed cards together. The next year her mom couldn't sign the card, but she was able to seal the card. And so she was sealing each of the envelopes. And the next year she was putting stamps, like sticker type stamps, on the envelopes. So she still did holiday cards with her mother. It's something they'd always done, but each year she had to change it a little bit so that her mom could still be involved in it. Now, would it have been faster if her just sitting, but that wasn't the point. The point wasn't to do it faster. The point was the connection they made while they were doing them. She mentioned stirring batter and mixes in the kitchen so that they can still be part of being in the kitchen and having the camaraderie and talking to everybody. Listening to Christmas carols, we can do that year round, because those memories are typically on the right side over here in that rhythmic area. And Christmas songs are things that we learned when we were really young. Mentions their holiday movies. And again, those don't have to be the whole movie. You might just watch a little short. If they can't get out to attend a religious service, almost every church now, their services are online. Due to the pandemic, we can pull up and watch a church service together at any time, and then we make that connection again. They can help with gifts by putting bows on gifts, going out to see lights, doing that reminiscence about holiday time, talking about gifts or favorite holidays. Again, we want to focus on what remains, not on what is lost. We can modify traditions so that they can still participate. I told you I was going to give you some information about places to get some of this stuff. Here are 2 websites. ssww.com, that's SNS worldwide. And if you type in dementia in their search, you're going to get some of the stuff like you see here on the screen. Also on allsstore.com, and I'll explain what we're looking at. Now, some of these things you might go and get an idea at these places and then go to Amazon and order it. It might be a little cheaper, or some of these you might make yourself. Now, that cat that you see up there, That's one of the robotic pets that purrs and meows and can roll over, and they're very lifelike. They have cats and they have dogs. They're a little bit different than the fur real type pets that you might get at Walmart or Target. There also, you can see, is all the different swatches of fabric, and they're on a little holder like a keychain. So they actually sell these just like this, or you can make your own. There's one of the water mats where they've got their hands on the water mats and you can move. You're squishing the water, but you're moving. It looks like a little marble in there. There is something about those water mats, especially for those who are at a stage where they're needing to be busy about sitting. You'll catch yourself doing it too, or you're working with the water mat all the time. This board that you see over on the right, it's almost like a busy board for an adult. It has things to tie, it has locks, it has, it looks like a dog collar on there, but it's all types of things. They have busy boards and busy boxes that are pre-made. I also put on here those shapes down at the bottom where it says spinning circles, and it comes in all different shapes with all different colors. And then you can create things with it, or you can just get them out and have them on the table. The woman in the picture there has what's called a fidget pillow, and it has zippers. It has buttons. It has all different types of materials so that it is very tactile and can be held. And one of my favorites is in the lower left-hand corner, and this is paint. It's not real paint. You just put water on a paintbrush and put it on the page and the picture appears. That one's going to be a bluebird. It's amazing. And that was at allstore.com. So ssww.com and allstore.com. And you are getting copies of these. We are right on time. All right, let me stop sharing my screen, see if anybody has any questions, comments, or anything that you would like to add to activities with early stage. Let me check the chat. Yes, we are recording this and you'll get a copy of it. Somebody had asked, and the slides, you'll get all of that this afternoon. And then again, if you're needing the CEU or certificate of attendance, we'll ask that you do the survey and give us about 3 weeks to get those back to you. Well, we're glad you were here with us today. Next month on the first Wednesday, we'll be doing activities for the middle stage of the disease. And then in November, we'll be doing late stage. So thanks everybody for being here. Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye. Yes, you can share the recording and the materials. You can.